Alright everybody, here we are into round 2 of tonight's 4-round standard tournament, followed by a cut to top 8. On the left, we've got Brent Rose, who's playing a Mono Black Devotion deck. I'm not sure how similar this is to the Mono Black Devotion deck that Brian Braun-Duin used to win Grand Prix Louisville, but I know it has some of the basic elements. It's playing Grey Merchants, it's playing Underworld Connections, it's playing all the usual suspects in that regard, but we'll see. I have to see if it varies at all. As the game progresses, his opponent, stream regular Garrett Meadows, who's playing Esper Control. As you can see, an Esper Control deck that features Omen Speaker. Looks like he split the Scry 2, one on top and one on bottom. Both these players are 1-0. So well on their way to making tonight's top 8. And again, I mentioned it earlier, tonight's FNM paying double payouts as part of Black Friday sales starting early, both this week's FNM and next week's FNM, paying twice the prize support for the same $5 entry fee. So if any of you guys are local or thinking about making the trip, it's twice as lucrative due to the holiday sales. So a turn 3 pack rat from Brett. Obviously a very good start in a lot of matchups. Unfortunately for Brett, he's playing against a Supreme Verdict deck. We see a second Omen Speaker, and there is a Watery Grave and an Elspeth on top. And Garrett's going to shove both of those, and then play a Temple of Deceit, and that one stays on top. So just trying to get to 4 so that he can verdict the board away using his Scry lands and Omen Speakers to set that draw up. I remember when these Scry lands were first spoiled, a lot of people were upset about them. I think mostly because they had grown fat and complacent off of the Buddy Land, Shockland mana base. But the additional deck velocity that the Scry one gives you, definitely worth it, as it turns out, especially in these late game control decks. So Brett figuring out what he wants to do here. He's 1 mana short of activating the pack rat and attacking with his Mutavault, which is an interesting interaction since the Mutavault with all creature types is a rat. So Garrett going to cast a main phase divination here. Or I should say a first main phase divination, as divination is a sorcery, and it's always main phase. So Brett, end of turn, is going to activate the pack rat, discarding a Devour Flesh, which is good in the long game, but as it does answer Aetherling, but not nearly as good in this spot. So now with 5 mana, Brett has the opportunity to activate pack rat, activate his Mutavault, and serve in for 4. Choosing not to do that. He's going to activate his Mutavault to kill both of those Omen Speakers, but I imagine there's a Supreme Verdict on the way here. So it'll be interesting to see if Brett plays around that, or if he decides to add to his board. Well, he goes ahead and adds a Whip of Erebos, a somewhat awkward post-combat Whip of Erebos, as he would have been able to gain 6 life there, but not sure what the rest of the cards are in his hand, if there was some kind of other aspect of the game that he was playing around. And as expected, Garrett playing the Supreme Verdict. But Brett still with cards, still with the Mutavault, and a Whip of Erebos active here. So we're going to be able to whip back a pack rat, and we're 2 lands away from being able to play it as well. So there's a Grey Merchant of Asphodel. Could be a 4-point life swing thanks to Brett's devotion to black. Knock Garrett down to 14. And more importantly, put some pressure on the board. And there is a D-Sphere, taking out the whip, so shutting off potential shenanigans there. I would think in a perfect world, or in a vacuum, the Esper deck is probably a favorite in this matchup. And I really don't think it's incredibly close, to be perfectly honest. I guess it's a matter of how many Thoughtseize the black deck draws and how many Mutavaults it has. And there's another Gray Merchant, this time for 1, 2, 3. What's the same 4 since the whip has been gone. So another 8-point live swing sends Brett up to 27, and with attacks, Garrett down to 8. And another verdict coming up. Yep. These Esper decks have moved into a lot of them play 4 verdicts, and a lot of them play as many as 4 detention spheres. Quick question answered in the chat to longtime stream viewer Evilbeard. I did say earlier in the week that we were not going to have an FNM stream as we see a Dissolve take out a Night Veil Spectre. But I had some travel plans change, and so here I am, spending another Friday night as a grown man in a broom closet at my local game store, talking into a microphone and broadcasting imaginary wizard fights across the globe. One interesting thing about the double payouts of tonight's FNM is that while attendance hasn't increased nearly as much as we would like here at the shop, it has brought out literally every grinder. I think of the 19 players in the tournament, 18 of them have top 4'd in FNM in the last couple months. I think there's 1 casual, and then there's of course the legend, Old Dave Brown. But we should be in for some high quality Magic tonight, as a lot of quality players and a lot of quality decks will be under the feature match camera. So we see an ultimate price takeout, an Omen Speaker. We see a Dissolve. Well, that was the same Dissolve that took out the Night Veil Spectre. Now we see a Jace, Architect of Thought. Garrett taking the pile of 2. Apologize for the autofocus there. For whatever reason, did not have that set off, so should be good in the future. So Garrett drawing 2 off the Jace, has an active Jace. Mutavault going to serve in, and a Hero's Downfall going to take it out. Obviously, we knew that was in his hand off of the Jace split. And then Brett's going to follow up with a Night Veil Spectre, so still representing a 2-turn clock here, down to 1 card in hand. And Garrett with the Detention Sphere. And there's a backbreaker as it's in there is a Bloodlord of Viscopa. So to be perfectly honest, while I was adjusting the autofocus feature on my camera, I missed exactly what the piles are, but with Garrett taking the 2, oh my goodness. That's got to be about the worst split you could imagine. The chat indicating that the split may have cost Brett this game. Unfortunately, I did not see exactly what it was, but we know we gave him the Hero's Downfall. And at this point, gaining 4 life a turn with the Bloodlord, it's going to be very hard for Brett to come back from this, especially now that we know that Garrett has a Sphinx's Revelation in his hand. So Brett serving into Jace here seems like the wrong move. But at this point, I don't really think it matters. So let's Sphinx for 6. Puts Garrett back up to 12. And with a win con on board, this game should be over relatively quickly, as I don't think there's any cards in Brett's deck at this point that can help him come back from this, especially not as Garrett adds a second copy of Bloodlord to his board. Blood Baron. Why do I keep saying Bloodlord? So looks like a likely overthinking of the Jace split cost Brett in this matchup, as the 2 removal spells, the D-Sphere and the Hero's Downfall, were all that Garrett needed to stabilize. Then he found his win condition off of his Jace. And he takes game number 1 in this round 2 feature match. Have a happy Thursday next Thursday. So the sideboarding looks to be done here as we move into game 2 with Brett on the play, down a game with his mono black devotion deck, multiple sweepers out of the Esper control deck of Garrett Meadows, enough to answer the turn 3 pack rat, and multiple gray merchants from Brett. So we see a turn 1 Thoughtseize here, revealing Omen Speaker, Supreme Verdict, Jace, Architect of Thought, Sphinx, and 2 lands here. So interesting choice here. I guess the choices are between Verdict, Sphinx's Revelation, and Jace. And we're going to take the Verdict. I guess there can be arguments made for all of them, and I guess it really depends on the hand that Brett has. Obviously, the biggest threat in that hand is the Sphinx's Revelation, but if you can anticipate a game in which you can win before that, I guess you would take the Verdict. And there is a Sin Collector, likely the reason that we didn't take the Sphinx's Revelation the first time. But again, there's a good argument to be made for taking the Jace. I guess it just depends on your draw, like I said. Garrett drawing a Far and Away, we see, revealed off the Sin Collector, and then a turn 2 Omen Speaker. Scrying 1 to the bottom and leaving 1 on top. So we'll see how Brett chooses to pilot this game. We see he has a Devour Flesh in hand. Interesting that the Devour Flesh has stayed in. I guess since Garrett is playing Omen Speakers, which a lot of the Esper decks don't, Devour Flesh is a little bit better. And here we're going to see a Devour Flesh. With Garrett's going to gain some life off of the toughness of his creature, and the attack from the Sin Collector going to take him down to 21. So Garrett's scrying a lot here, trying to set up his draws later. So it looks like there's another Devour Flesh in Brett's hand. I'm not really sure I like these at all, to be perfectly honest. It's tricky because Garrett's main win conditions are cards that you can't otherwise beat, as we see a 3rd Omen Speaker out of Garrett in the first 5 turns of this game. But they are otherwise fairly useless in the early game, so you are the somewhat aggro deck forced to play a pretty situational control card. So Brett with the 4th land, we're going to see a whip here. We are going to see a whip. And we're just going to pass back. Hey buddy. So I'm joined now by Joseph Deal, who we saw in our bonus round 1 coverage. Losing a nail biter with mono red. Joseph, I'm assuming because you're in here right now that you won your round 2 matchup.
Yes, I did.
Slinging those red cards. So there is a Blood Baron of Vizkopa. And now I'm imagining Brett really wishes he had those Devour Fleshes. But the fact that Garrett's playing Omen Speakers really kind of hedges against Edict effects anyway. So I'm not sure it would have been any better to hold them. And he just has to pass back. So Garrett's serving in with the team here. So Garrett's going to gain 4. And then play another Blood Baron. Brett down to 11 and likely out of this game. End of turn? No. Whip is a sorcery speed. Brett figuring that out, likely because of a reminder from Garrett. We see he draws a Desecration Demon.
Is there any answer that he has besides for Edict's effects for Resolve?
There is no. The only I think the only outs in his deck are Devour Flesh, and he's already used 2 of them.
Can potentially race it with the Lifelink and Desecration Demon.
Yeah, but that Desecration Demon's never going to attack. We see a Far and Away,
Okay.
the away portion taking out the demon, and then serving in for 9, putting Brett down to 2. He's going to, or at least 3, and then he's going to draw his last card and then concede, I'm sure. So, not the way. I mean, the mono black deck is obviously super potent, but I think it has a pretty bad matchup in the way that Garrett has built his Esper control deck. Particularly annoying for Brett, I'm sure. And Garrett also joining us now, who we just saw victorious in his round 2 feature match. Garrett, in a vacuum, Esper control should beat mono black a lot, right?
Yes.
Especially your build, which blanks Devour Flesh.
Yes. Urban Speaker is not only good because it blocks, but because then it makes you Blood Baron.
Yeah. Well, there was the chat was some people in the chat were wondering why he was burning those Devour Fleshes early, but it's not like they get better later in the game.
Right.
It's just a brutal situation because he has to leave them in as answers to Blood Barons and Aetherling. Yes.
Like
All the ones that are just literally dead cards.
Is this game over already?
I don't know. Nick is a Supreme Verdict deck. Like, it's not nearly as good against him. The blue-green deck is not nearly as good against him as it is, like, the control deck. How about that? So, we see Joe playing a blue-green Devotion deck, mono-green basically splashing blue for Cyclonic Rift, chaining into 2 emissaries into a Traveling Satyr, but Nick with a comparable blowout, with a Detention Sphere taking out both emissaries. And Joe just has to pass back. His Nykthos 3 mana symbols away from being able to profit here. And then Nick leaving end of turn, we're going to Bramble Crush. Oh.
Did we try to end of turn Bramble Crush? Because that's a sorcery.
Is it a sorcery?
Let's go now.
Tell him. Yeah, just tell him. Hey, Joe. Is Bramble Crush a sorcery?
That is a sorcery. They're your main thing.
Me and Jesse,
Yeah, we're just the game state doesn't change. It just means that Joe has to tap out that turn.
Yeah.
So easy backup.
He was going to have a huge Nykthos activation. Burning Tree Emissary does that.
We saw it in round 1. In round 1, he went absolutely bonkers. Like he played that. He ended up one turn. He chained a couple mana dorks into a Garrett. Garrett drew 5 creatures. The next turn he activated for enough and played enough that he got to cast that guy the guy that gets bigger for Devotion as an 11/11.
Yeah, the 3 mana guy.
Yeah, I forget what he's called. He won that one. He won that one.
that card that you never pick in draft.
To be fair, Logan, his Gruul opponent, did cast a Colonial Hydra with an Ogre Battle Driver out and Gorkhan Rampager and attack for 14.
Wow.
But Joe untapped a Cyclonic Rifted all of his board. So that's the power of the... Joe's deck is a perfect example of just the raw power in this format with Nykthos, with Cyclonic Rift, with Traveling Satyr. He's also playing Prophet of Kruphix, which is equivalent Traveling Satyr. It's a better Traveling Satyr, actually.
Prompt Speaker Zagana. I know some builds play that. I'm not sure whether he does.
Why are we doing tricks with this Nykthos? Because it doesn't net mana here.
If you have a Nykthos, you're going to use it. It's disrespectful not to.
So I'm not sure exactly what went on there, but I know he cast a Mistcutter Hydra for some amount, and Nick just popped his Ratchet Bomb, which is on 1. So clears that out. So we've drawn all of our emissaries, which ironically is actually not a very good draw.
So, Hydra is like a 5 mana cost on the stack, but whenever it's on the battlefield, it's only cost 1, right?
Yeah. You're exactly right. So Ratchet Bomb on 1 does clear the Mistcutter Hydra, and Joe continues his Satyr Emissary beatdown plan. Looks like a Supreme Verdict coming, and that in fact is what we see. So the key play here, honestly, was the dissolve on Bramble Crush. This game would have been, it wouldn't have been the style points win that Joe would have wanted, but he would have been attacking for $1 billion here, as it's obvious. Whoops. Okay. Well, we've got counter magic probably. Yep, just a old-fashioned negate answering an Elspeth. It's interesting. Maybe Nick didn't think that Joe played counter magic. I mean, obviously it's in the board, I imagine, but. Because he very triumphantly just ran that out there. And he's still in a great spot here. Joe down to 1 card in hand. His only creature is an 0/3 hexproof wall.
Yes.
It's very good.
Is that Angel Serenity?
Could be.
Do these decks still play that?
I'm not seeing a blue-white one play it, but It's not unreasonable.
Although, to be fair, didn't Nick also finish building his deck while round 1 was being seeded?
Yes.
Isn't this the second time he's done that?
Yes.
Well, actually, the last time he missed round 1 because he didn't have a deck, and then went to the finals.
Yeah, his round 1 opponent was Dave Snow, who needs the free win, obviously.
Dave Snow. Dave Snow was late, too, because he was busy qualifying for the Pro Tour or some nonsense.
Oh, jeez.
So there's
Angel
Garrett.
Serenity.
Well, the Angel's going to kill it, isn't it?
It can.
So we're going to draw an Ooze, a Caryatid, a Mystic. Oh, does this deck play Bidance as well?
I think it's in the side.
Okay.
But
I mean, it's a perfect answer to control here.
it might be just like a one of main.
So the Angel's going to kill the Garrett, but Joe did draw 3 cards of it. Luckily for Nick, none of them really high impact. 2 Mana Dorks and the Scavenging Ooze, which can get big, but I mean, Nick's deck has tons of removal.
Right.
The fact that Joe has not put anything non-hexproof on the board for turns, indicating that Nick probably has an answer somewhere.
Luckness.
Yeah, we're going to run out the Lucanos here, and that's going to meet a Dissolve.
More importantly, that lets Nick scry.
Yep. He's going to shove one of the
pretty
bottom.
heavy on lands.
Well, he couldn't be more heavy on lands than in the Game 3 we saw against Joseph, in which he drew, and I'm not joking, either scrying them away or drawing them, every land in his deck. It was a very odd game of Magic, to be perfectly honest. So the Angel starts beating in. I imagine that by attacking there, I guess it doesn't really mean anything, because Nick's very unlikely to block, as Joe can make that Ooze at least big enough to trade with the Angel. But Nick could have Azorius Charm here as well.
Right.
Nothing better against Ooze than Azorius Charm. It makes you feel so good.
That's actually what I cut out of my deck to put the image pictures in.
So it looks like Joe's hand is the Elvish Mystic and Caryatid we know about. We're going to flashback something here. Flashback Faithless Looting.
That's a play that Joe Lewis tries to make every week.
Flashback Faithless Looting.
Yes.
Joe likes to play Dredge. 6 mana for another Garrett. Oh, Prime Speaker.
He also,
Prime Speaker. Is that going to resolve?
so the Ooze is, how big is the Ooze right now?
3. So he'll draw 4.
No, it's a Dissolve.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a Cyclonic Rift in response. That's brutal. So he's only going to be able to gain...
So he'll draw 1 card.
You're going to
See
draw
how
one.
Prime Speaker's on is worded?
Hmm?
Can you see how Prime
The MTG bot's not working to me.
Oh, jeez.
I'm going to step outside and see.
Unless, like, if he does it in response to the Zagana, then Zagana enters and he draws 1 card. If he does it in response to the trigger, Zagana enters with the same amount of counters. And, like, he'll draw the cards, but the Zagana will return to his hand. So it depends on how Nick did it. I think what happened here is Nick did it in response to the trigger, thinking that it would...
Well, if he does it in response to the trigger, Zagana for 1/1. Zagana will be bounced to his hand. The ability will then resolve, and it'll check the last note.
Oh, yeah.
Power and toughness. Does she enter with the counters, or does the counters get added as part of her entry to the battlefield? Is the question, probably.
I'm going to use this
We could get up and
smartphone
look,
technology.
but regardless, like if he bounces, if she enters with the counters, obviously he's going to get to draw 4 cards. But if regardless, it looks like he's just bounced the Scavenging Ooze now.
But I was so far behind it.
He just
Doing it, we have to do it in. They're doing it in response to the casting, because it comes into play with the counters. There's no trigger.
Right, that's what we were.
Yeah, that was the clarification. Well, you can respond to the trigger of drawing the cards once the counters are put on, but that would be there no matter what. You'd still draw the cards. Yes. Yeah, you can't respond to the counters going on. So he's gonna. You can either bounce it, make Zagana a 1/1. You can overload in response, make Zagana a 1/1, or you can bounce everything, but he draws 4 cards. They got there.
Yeah, because even if you bounce it, it checks the last known power.
Last known information. It was just an interesting kind of thing, because there's, depending on when Nick's casting it. Yeah, he was casting it in response on the stack, so.
So what's Joe at? Is Joe really at 11?
Mm-hmm.
See if Nick has a glorious anthem to finish off.
Well, it's amazing that negate that Joe had to answer that Elspeth. I mean, that was pretty huge here. I'm not saying he's out of the woods here. He's in a pretty dire situation anyway, but he's going to be able to gain some life here with his Scavenging Ooze and potentially race this Angel.
But Angels are known for their speed and the wings. So racing
I think more flying when I think the wings, which is why he's getting in damage.
So we're attacking in here for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 damage. So Joe just trying to race here. We play a Temple to Scry, leaving it on top. And we do have a Nykthos, right?
This late in the game, that has to be a very high impact spell like a Garrett or a Cyclonic Rift.
Arbor Colossus, preferably.
Arbor Colossus would be very good here. Because he obviously has enough mana to...
Probably it's Elvish Mystic.
It's not...
Elvish Mystic is the best draw here, I'm pretty sure.
Oh. So we're going to an Overload Cyclonic Rift, end of turn here. Joe checking to see if he can eat any more creatures. What this does is it prevents a blowout with Nykthos. I mean, Joe still has a lot of mana, but I think Nick in a pretty good spot here. Plus, if he caught a Dissolve in any of his last 2 draw steps, then Nick can possibly just win this game by preventing Joe from adding anything of relevance. We're siding out Celestial Flare mana here? Is that what we're doing? I don't think Celestial Flare is very good against Joe, is it? That's a sideboard card in most of these decks anyways, isn't it?
He plays one... He has at least one main. Because he played it in game 1 of ours.
Played like 2 or 3 main. Max T to the Madman. Also has a hilarious name.
He does. He's also very good at Magic. I like how just you don't hear from him for months, and then starts the Invitational top 8 Max T's.
Well, you know what? You know why? Because he tries to coincide his tour schedule because he's in a rock band.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, so he tries to coincide that schedule, traveling with the Star City Games opens.
I did not know that. Not only is the Lost Legion Zach Sells Magic Broom Closet live stream good for Magic content, but you get good real world information about Max Teats.
Yes. Well, I came in here to listen about Max
So
Teats.
there is a Prime speaker. So Joe's basically just playing off the top here. He's trying to draw the Rift.
He's looking for a Cyclonic Rift.
Oh, did he draw it? No, but it was an Nature-Link. It was a blue card, but it was not the blue card that mattered. So Joe, realizing he was dead on board, needed to draw a Cyclonic Rift. Zagana for 1, just to draw a card. Pray it's the one you need. It was not. And so, pretty good Magic. This blue-green deck is pretty strong. It does some very degenerate things. Every deck that plays Nykthos does degenerate things, but this one does some particularly degenerate things. There was a question in the chat that saying that Nick cast a Dissolve off of a 2 white and a blue, but I also think it was a point where he had he had 10 lands open, and that was the only relevant spell that turn. So he may have tapped his lands wrong, but I don't think it's one that. I think we've caught several things so far tonight that could have been potential YouTube comments.
You'll notice that in my game against Brett, there were turns where I didn't tap even with my mana. I just showed him the card and then did stuff on the end of turn.
But to be fair, Garrett, that's because you're a dirty cheater. We've established that a long time ago.
Sphinx Rep for 2 with no mana tapped.
Anyone, Pierce in the chat saying, anyone interested in hearing about his 4-color burn deck in Standard? I'm on board with that.
4 colors but red.
Yes, no red. No red in my burn deck. So guys, we've got less than 6 minutes left in the round. Remember, if you want to win some foil promo Lingering Souls, head over to our Facebook page at facebook.com/ZachSellsMagic. Look for the giveaway post. It also shows up on my Twitter feed, so like our Facebook page and follow me on Twitter to make yourself eligible, and then look for the instructions there on how you can enter up to 4 separate ways. That's 8. That's misleading, but 4 separate ways you can enter to win multi-format all-star Lingering Souls. It's shiny. It's a 4 for 1. It carries a Jit. Garrett likes it. Joseph likes small white creatures, but doesn't like them at sorceries that make them.
I do like it. I just don't play.
Can I tell my Dream Hall story?
No. Yes. Go ahead.
I was playing against Zach's Mono Blue Show and Tell deck one time.
The Omnitel deck.
He puts in Dream Halls. I make this play. off your dream halls, discard Lingering Souls to cast Lingering Souls, then flashback with Lingering Souls.
Yes. That is the play he made.
Then I had enough creatures to sacrifice to Emrakul.
Yes, you beat an Emrakul, because it was on the show and tell Emrakul play in that game, or whatever it was.
You hardcast it.
So there's a link in the chat from... I apologize, I don't know what... it's Pearsall's blog on Twitter. Don't know what his first name is. I want to say Josh or Aaron, and I think both of those are incorrect. But posted a link to some YouTube videos of his deck tech for his 4-color burn deck, so go check that out if you're in the Twitch chat.
Is that Larry Watring?
No, that's I'd Be Crazy 420 or whatever it is. Question in chat, do I ship overseas if you win the promo Lingering Souls? You should just ask Garrett Roth, who just won last week's giveaway, and I sent him a foil. Rest in peace.
Yeah, you could have just said yes.
I could have done that, but I was trying to amp up we got a lot of time to kill here, boys. 4 minutes left to go. The simple answer is yes, I send those cards overseas. I've sent a lot of cards overseas, and will continue to send them overseas should the winners be from there.
Alright, 4 minutes left.
Our last 2 giveaways were won by people from overseas. One in the UK and one in Hawaii. Technically, it's over a sea. It's over an ocean. It's over half an ocean.
Yes. Or if you go the other way around the world, over many oceans.
Yes, many oceans. Yeah, this sounds really an inefficient travel, but you might want to get a new travel agent.
You could use the same definition then for Kentucky.
Yeah.
Also, technically, we could just do the easiest thing
So
possible.
earlier this week, so obviously my branding on everything, it's Zach Sells Magic, because when I started using Twitter and I started using Facebook, it was a time in my Magic career or fandom or whatever, where I was buying and selling a lot of Magic cards on the secondary market. And while I still do that to a certain extent, it's much more calmed down. And I never really ended up using anything other than a Twitter account for that purpose. So that's why I have the weird branding. But I don't really talk about that stuff on any of that, except earlier this week, I was putting together a buy list or something, doing something, and I noticed that Cavern of Souls were very much underpriced on TCG Player versus what Card Kingdom is paying for them. And that's usually like a hot tip. And so I just tweeted it, and I just said, this is my first hot tip, and probably my last, but Cavern of Souls is $9 on buy list, go crazy. And then Marcel from the Brainstorm Brewery, who already followed me, retweeted that to his 1,500 followers. Nick Beckvar, the owner of AffinityForCards.com, retweeted it to his 900 followers, and I got 50 followers in like 3 hours. So I hope those of you who are seeing my tweets are enjoying pictures of my dogs and one-liners about people from my work who are entirely too loud to exist, and then constant information about this stream and what feature matches are on. But
no financial advice whatsoever.
There will be occasionally financial advice, but it's mostly like, do you want to buy my cards? I dropped my cap of my Coke in here. I can't seem to look
If you get it back, are you going to use it?
No. My wife collects those points. She has something absurd like 20,000 Coke points, but they never put anything big on there anymore. They used to put like flat screen TVs and stuff, and they don't do that anymore. Do you remember back in the day that there was like, this was when I was in high school, that had Pepsi Points promotion, and a guy saved it, and they had like the commercial where at the end of it was always some ridiculous thing, and one of them was like a jet, like a Tomcat or something, and then a guy saved enough and tried to get it, and they're like, that was a joke. we can't, civilians can't own that plane. And there was some like big like laws. He tried to like take him to the.
Remember whenever there were Marlboro points?
Nava Bros in the chat. Well, he has the interesting name of Nava Bros before Navajo.
I don't even have to look at the chat. I see that guy everywhere.
Okay, he's asking if the guy with the tape, who is you, are you wearing a leisure suit? If so, that's pretty amazing. No, he is not. But we're going to go ahead and pretend that maybe some week we need to have like dress up FNM. Which I tried to do Halloween. I was going to come as the guy from Duck Dynasty, but I got violently ill and could not do it. It looks like a FedEx outfit. It's funny because it is, in fact, a FedEx. Hashtag called it. You nailed it. There's something I was going to say about the Twitter, but so there's time in the round, so we are...
No, we have 23 seconds left.
How many minute rounds do we play here anymore? 45? 45.
About 350.
There has been a very intense resurgence of the about tree fitty joke tonight. Like
Just
you,
me?
me. No, I said it as well.
Oh, okay.
George also sang it.
Really?
I don't know what's happening. That we're all regressing to like
George usually
1990.
brings a list, though.
That's like 1996, isn't it? That show's been on for 17 years.
Yeah.
George usually brings a list, though.
Of South Park,
Catchphrases.
the South Park quotes he wants to work in across the evening.
South Park, Family Guy.
Well, there's something going on in the chat that I don't want to repeat. I did pick these up tonight, which is irrelevant, but fun cards from my cube. That's a miscalculation in a trinket mage. You can see, oh, shiny.
Ooh, original art foil.
Miscalculate. Yeah, the original trinket mage is much cooler. But the miscalculation is a heck of a magic card. Conditional counter spell for 2 mana. Late game you can cycle it. It's just, I love playing with that in the cube. So good. And of course, since it's shiny, it counters 2 spells.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Only cost 1 to cycle, draw 2.
No, it costs 0 to cycle. I mean, come on.
I think we know miscalculation.
I thought you were going to tell the story about how against that same mono blue show and tell deck, you sideboarded in a pithing needle, then realized Dream Halls was not something you can pithing needle, and instead pithing needle to fetch land, and still got me with it.
Because even after I've played stuff off of your Dream Halls, this was past that point in my life, and then we're playtesting again, and pithing needle is pretty good in this matchup, right? But yes, I did side in a 1-up pithing needle, played it on turn 1. It was like, this is the worst.
I just like that you asked, when you played it, you asked me if it was activated. You didn't ask me during the sideboarding process, which I would have also told you. But you did name Scalding Tarn, and I had 2 in my hand, so it worked out for you.
Got it.
All right, we'll be back in less than 5 minutes with round 3. We got 4 rounds of standard tonight, plus a top 8. I have a feeling, tonight feels like a top 8 that's going to play. It just feels like it.
Oh, it's double payout.
It's also 100% grinders, so like, so everybody's going to try to get hashtag value out of their FNM experience tonight.
Also,
So,
not only am I here, I'm playing a roll deck. So,
yes, are you 2-0?
yes.
Yeah, your deck is pretty well placed for this. So, guys, remember, follow us on our various forms of social media. Go ahead and subscribe to us on YouTube. You can go check out our 4 rounds of Legacy on Wednesday, as well as bonus Legacy playtesting that I posted as well, where you saw 3 very non-interactive games in which one of us destroyed the other. All right, we'll be back with round 3.